Hello, how is everyone doing? Hopefully, you're having a good end of week. One more day, and then it's going to be Friday. So, I think I'm probably going to title this Acquisition versus Education. And then, what I really want to talk about is a little bit of GAS, which is Guitar Acquisition Syndrome, versus us, if we were to say GUESS, which would be Guitar Education Syndrome. I feel like guitar players, and it's probably more so unique to guitar players than any other instrument that I know of, um, have a tendency to think that acquiring a new instrument, a new amp, a new pedal is just going to make them a better guitar player, a better musician overall, as opposed to buying a book, hiring a teacher versus education. And I started thinking of this based upon two things. One is I've been working on learning the cello probably for the past three some odd years, 3 to 4 years. And it's only recently, when I say recently, probably close to about a year, I started seriously taking lessons. And then something that happened, but before I talk about that, is I have books, right? So I've acquired a lot of books as I'm going through the whole pedagogy, even as an adult learner. This is a Position Pieces for Cello by Rick Mooney. Boom. Suzuki cello one. Yes, adults, we use that as well. Two Octave Scales and Bowings by Susan C. Brown. This one is ABCs of Cello for the absolute beginner. And I actually have a lot other books for cello. Now, how many cellos do I have? One cello. How many bows do I have? I have three bows. Really, two bows, but three bows, let's just call it that way. So, how many guitars do I have? I don't even know. A lot more than one. Let's just put it that way. And lots of other stuff. And then for amps, I only have two amps right now. But there's a stark difference between learning another instrument and learning guitars. Okay? Cello has a known pedagogy, probably, just classical instruments in general. And so, there was a time with cello I wanted to buy a very, very expensive cello a bow. I was going to call it a stake, a cello bow. And I contacted the proprietor of the music store, and they sent me like three high-end bows. I took the bow into my music teacher, my cello teacher, and she says, "No, you don't need to buy that. You just need to practice more and to do the work that you need to get done on the books." And then, for some reason, my mindset was just like guitar. If I get another guitar, if I get another bow, I'm going to play 10 times better. Yes, to a certain extent, you do need a really good instrument, a viable instrument, but you don't necessarily need more instruments. You do need to focus in on the education piece and learning, and whether it's paying a teacher, buying books and things of that nature, and then really, really do the discipline. But why is that the case for guitar players? And I don't even know that. But then I started thinking too, if you go to a music store, I'm not going to name them, but I go to a lot of music store. There's the big box one that everybody knows of. I've got some great ones in Massachusetts and all that. The footprint in the areas that actually have sheet music, that actually have books, it's so tiny that it might as well be non-existent. Let's just put it that way. So I'll go to these stores and I'll see, Les Pauls, Gibson, Fenders, tons of amps, tons of pedals, acoustic guitars if it's an acoustic guitar store, the Martins, the Froggy Bottom, Santa Cruz. You see them all over the place. Nobody has anywhere near the footprint as it relates to books. And I think that kind of sets the tone right off the bat. And so what they're trying to sell you is more equipment, not education. It's almost like, we're not trying to fix the actual illness. The illness is the lack of ability, okay? And we're feeding it through just like a couple of little things here and there, which is acquiring a new guitar, acquiring a new pedal, acquiring, a new amp, where really how you fix the illness is through education, through some level of working through a systematic, way of learning the guitar, whether it's studying your chords, arpeggios, repertoire, music theory. it's hard for people to talk about that. The funny thing about it is just if you look around in the internet, when people have new guitar days and things like that, they get all these videos and views and things of that nature. But if I were to sit here and do an analysis of the Mel Bay book or Ted Green's book, the reception wouldn't be the same as if like, wow, I got a new guitar. Let's talk about that. Let's look at that. And you know, at some point you got to hone in on your education and get gas to become guests. Let's just put it that way with the education. You know, there's something that I've just noticed, specifically going into all these music stores and looking at the way the layout of the stores are. What are the books, if any, are they selling? And you know, and the only thing that differs from that is a little bit. I should mention this to give him props. This one I'm going to mention: Johnson and Strings in Massachusetts. So I don't frequent other classical or classically oriented stores, but they have a lot of music there. So let's just put it that way. They have cellos, they have, you know, violins, violas, and bows and things of that nature. But there's a healthy stock of books. And I don't know if it's because of the genre. And in classical music, people learn to read music and they have a set way of studying something like position pieces and things of that nature. And that just doesn't exist to the same extent. And in all honesty, I should take that back. There's one other place, I forgot to mention this, like Berkeley Music Store, but it's a school. So that's a little bit different. So they're not really selling you books. It's a music store. It's a bookstore. So it's called Berkeley Bookstore, I believe, in Massachusetts and stuff. So that has a lot of that. But at the end of the day, I think that it's just a lot easier for human nature being what it is to think that rather than me putting in my 10,000 plus hours to get better at this craft, and actually doing it in a way that sometimes it's not as fun. Like I don't like doing position pieces or things like that. Rather than doing that, if I just get that new cello bow, if I just buy that new guitar, it's going to exponentially increase my ability and I am going to get better. And so I think that happens to be the trap that we all fall into. Another trap that we as guitarists fall into is, I call it the hero syndrome, is that a lot of our artists that we kind of grew up listening to, they have certain guitars that they have and instruments and pedals. And because of that, we have a need to want to acquire them, period. I get asked, and I don't even play pedals, and you could pretty much figure it's going to be, I don't know, a Polytone or a Hendrickson and a Telly or an Archtop. But I get asked all these questions about gear. You know, oh, what are you going through? What's the amp? What's your setting? What's your pick? Things of that nature. So there's more about that than about, you know, how did you play that from that perspective. So, you know, anyway, just top of mind, education is important. Learning your craft, not learning it is the easiest way to acquire it. You can't buy up here and over here in your hands, right? You're not going to get that from any instrument. Yeah. Buy the best possible instrument that you can get that thing properly set up. But at some point, you're going to have that come to Jesus discussion. This is therapeutic for me, that it's not just about acquiring new gear. It's about actually honing down and actually, you know, acquiring maybe a couple of new books, a teacher, something that's going to take your playing to the next level. All right, then. Again, thank you for watching. And as usual, practice, and practice some more.